Maira, thank you very much for the extensive and comprehensive overview. In particular, I think it was very important to see the dynamic that has been evolving in the last years, and the transition that we actually see from a technology push or a technology offering that was the case, I'd say 5 years ago or so, to a real market pull that we see right now at a large scale, at a very large scale, for hydrogen in the market at large and at an international extent. So I would have a couple of questions, but I would first like to take a look at the audience. I haven't seen any questions in the chat right now. Are there any questions from the audience at present? Otherwise, I think if so, things will be popping up. I'd start with a few warm-ups. You've nicely shown how even the international strategy development has evolved even in the last year since we concluded the study for the World Energy Council. Have you seen a change in direction or in scope of the national strategies since then? Sort of taken as a fact that the launch of the German and European strategies has been sort of a catalyst for other strategies to follow.
Yes, I think that's actually a very good question. This is actually something we already found in our study, as you will remember maybe last year, that the later the strategy was published, usually the more comprehensive it has gotten. That's not true for all strategies. I think it really depends on the countries. Of course, for example, when you look at Japan, Japan already published a very comprehensive strategy in 2017. So that's merely a general trend, I would say. So I think in general, yes, the strategies have become maybe a bit more comprehensive, but it really depends on the country. I think the German and European strategies have sort of, yeah, maybe helped or have maybe accelerated the process, because many countries have kept looking at Germany and how Germany is developing or implementing its hydrogen strategy. For example, by introducing the H2 Global instrument, many countries have seen the need or the possibilities that hydrogen can offer by, for example, building a national hydrogen economy, by building infrastructures for hydrogen production and eventually hydrogen export. So yeah, it really depends on the country, but I think many countries, especially in the past year, have developed comprehensive strategies with regard to hydrogen use, but also, yeah, hydrogen production, I would say.
Okay. No, I agree that is what we see as well, also going along. And as you pointed out, we will expect more and also more comprehensive strategies going forward. So that's good. I do see a question coming in. Let me see if I can open that. Yes, the question from Laura Oberländer actually is, how do you see the current status of green versus low carbon hydrogen certification in the European Union? Will it be the certify scheme, or what classification will be implemented in what time frame? And not necessarily a focus of the strategies, but I think it's a good question because the topic of green hydrogen pops up in most strategies, and certifying or having a reliable way to prove the quality of your hydrogen is an important prerequisite to future trading.
Yes, exactly. I agree. As I mentioned before, of course, as World Energy Council, we try to have a look at the global market and at global trade. And I agree that, of course, certification is a precondition for especially trade of green or low carbon hydrogen. And that is actually one of the topics we as World Energy Council are currently looking into. And I think it's one of the that many people around the world ask which certification scheme will we have in the end, because we have we're just in the middle of conducting a study looking into different parts of the world and different certification schemes or standards around the world, because the Certify standard within the EU is one of the more prominent ones, but there have been initiatives for the certification of green or low carbon hydrogen in many regions of the world, for example, in Australia, but also in China, in other regions. So yeah, it's a very current, a very actual question. We are also interested to see which standard in the end, will be implemented or will become prominent, maybe so to say. It's at the end, or at the moment, hard to say. We are waiting the delegated acts, for example, that the European Commission announced for release in December. I think that will give us an idea of where the direction will go within the EU. And I think it would be interesting to see whether we will get a global certification system in the end, which could prove very hard. But at the moment, we don't really have a standard, which makes it very hard to trade hydrogen, because different regions have different standards, and in the end, it would absolutely make sense to sort of have a system of maybe some agreed upon standards to enable trade between different regions.
Thank you, Maira, and I can only add to that. Yes, this is a very important point. As some of you may know, we at LVST are involved also in the Certify standard and into making that at least a basis for a European activity. What we currently see is a very strong interest also from international regions, particularly from the Middle East, in the green hydrogen certification issue. So I would expect actually very quickly an international standard to emerge. There are also activities in Australia on the same end, and that's also driven by the German government, because the import relationships that you have shown need to rely on something that can be proven and certified. So I expect to see a very strong development there in the next couple of years. There's another question from Steffi Beck from Toyota Motor Europe. She also thanks you for the presentation, which cannot be said enough, often enough. She says, we saw within your hydrogen strategy overview that passenger cars are not included in the European strategy, nor within the French strategy on first sight. But with maintaining the 700 bar hydrogen infrastructure, it comes with the back door. What is your view about passenger cars and the role of hydrogen as a fuel in passenger cars with a look at the international strategies?
Mm-hmm. I think that is a very prominent discussion we have over and over again, or we see over and over again, because as I mentioned before, in other countries, the use of hydrogen in passenger cars, is already there. They are already being used currently in Asian countries, for example. In Europe, there's sort of at least at this point, there's sort of the consensus that it should, or it would make more sense to use hydrogen, which we expect to have in rather, not too large quantities, especially in the next decade, to say. So it would make sense to use it in areas that are hard to decarbonize, or areas where it's hard, or as I said, not competitive to use electricity directly. So that's basically a consensus, at least at a political level. When you look into the individual countries, of course, there are always people or stakeholders saying, why can't we also use it in the passenger cars? But at the moment, I would say, at least for the next decade, maybe, that the use of hydrogen in the transport sector is mainly focusing on areas like the maritime or the air transport, and not passenger cars. That's a development I can't see at the moment. of course, as I said, it's an ongoing discussion, so that might change, especially with when we have more hydrogen available, and with the climate targets that get harder and harder to reach. So who knows? In the end, we might also use it in passenger cars.
Yeah, thank you, Maira. And just as a small add-on, what we saw in the original outset of the strategies is that there is certainly a stronger focus on passenger cars in the strategies on the Asian side. We do see that in Korea and Japan. But as Stephanie pointed out, and as you rightly said, Maira, not in the European or Western strategies, if you want to call it that way. Another question also from Steffi Beck is today's energy import rate is about 70%. And you also clearly said in your presentation that we will need to import hydrogen because we won't be self-sufficient. When it comes to hydrogen partnerships that you have shown, what percentage of total energy import do you see for the coming years for Europe, I presume?
What percent of total energy import? So I'm not really sure whether the question or whether Ms. Beck is asking the percent of hydrogen in terms of total energy import, or the percent of hydrogen import.
Of hydrogen imported versus domestically produced.
Okay, yeah. So for Germany, we project an importation rate of 90%. So we expect 90% to be imported and 10% to be produced domestically.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the audience? Otherwise, I would have maybe one to finish up, or if others are coming along, please feel free. Particularly on the imports, as well as for the domestic production. I mean, 10% doesn't sound a lot, but in light of the hydrogen need we have, it will be very sizable. It will require very sizable plans for hydrogen production domestically. How do you see the investment for that coming along? Because a gigawatt of electrolysis production requires about roughly $1 billion in investment, just order of magnitude, not detail. And this is 1 gigawatt. Sounds a lot, but is of course by far not enough. How do you see investment decisions internationally coming along? And do you think that the pace of investment and of commitment is currently sufficient to reach the goals that you have outlined?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a very good question, because investing into the infrastructure, both on the export and import side, is essential for hydrogen trade and for importing hydrogen to the EU. You know, speaking from an EU perspective, this is why we also focused on the partnerships very much, because what we also found in our study is that the investments are very large. We expect them to be very large, especially in the beginning. To really build the infrastructure and to enable exports and imports, and therefore it makes sense to share the risk in the end, the investment risk, but also the costs. And I think the H2 Global project, or a program that Germany introduced this year, is a very good one. On EU level, there are even talks to implement it on the EU level, because it is especially focused on exactly this. So it, about 900 million euros, the German government basically announced that it will give 900 million euros for the H2 Global program to build strategic partnerships and to build infrastructure in the partner countries and to enable imports. So I think that is one very important step to really enable the market ramp up and to enable the production and the imports to Germany in the end. Of course, I think many companies are already are still hesitant to invest, especially since many legal requirements or the legal conditions, the legal framework is not really pronounced yet, and that's why many people are really looking to the EU level. Because as I also mentioned in my conclusions, we really need binding standards in terms of certification, but also in terms of safety standards, in terms of standards for the use of hydrogen within the EU. And I think before we don't have them, many companies are really hesitant to invest large amounts of money into infrastructure and into developing a hydrogen economy, because they kind of wait until the framework is there. That's my impression. Maybe you have something to add there.
I think that's fair. On the other hand, maybe adding and to what you said, what we do see is a lot of third-party investment being earmarked in the sector. As many of you know, the international investment sector has a lot of money to spend because the capital markets don't offer a lot of alternatives. So we do see actually project developers dedicating billion euro amounts, project developers and industry. We've seen a few large industry corporations in the past years earmarked and dedicated to invest into large-scale hydrogen generation projects, but yes, they will all wait for stable boundary conditions to build the business cases on. So absolutely correct, but I think that there's these two sides. There's a lot of money available, ready to go in the sort of starting blocks. If you look at the athletics metaphor there, and money will be there once the conditions are right. Well, thanks for the lively discussion. Thank you for the insights you provided. It has been a real pleasure. I hope you will have some time to listen in through it during the day. Let me try and pull up the schedule for the remaining day to share that. See if the technology works. No.
Yep. Thank you very much. And
you're most welcome.
Goodbye from me, and have a very interesting day with many fruitful discussions. It was my pleasure.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you, Maira.
You're welcome.